students, welcome to chemistry class. Today I'll be teaching a chapter from inorganic chemistry. The chapter name is D and F block elements. Let's get started. So this is the periodic table. So in the last year you have studied about the S block elements as well as the P block elements. So that is why in this year you will be studying about the remaining two blocks, that is D and F block elements. So here the elements of first two groups, they are collectively called as the S block elements, and the elements belonging to group 13 to 18, they are called as the P block elements. Comes the D block elements. The elements belonging to the group 3 to 12 are collectively known as D block elements. And here we have F block elements, which has two series. So one is the lanthanide series, other is the actinide series. Lanthanide series, it starts from the element lanthanum and ends with the lutetium, whereas the actinide series of elements starts with actinium and ends with the laryntium. So then, how do we define D block elements, or what are D block elements? Here it is, the definition. The elements of the periodic table belonging to group 3 to 12 are known as D block elements. In the previous slide, so I have shown you the D block elements. So the elements of the periodic table belonging to group 3 to 12 are known as D block elements. And why they are called so? Because in these elements the last electron enters into D subshell or D orbital, hence these elements are called as D block elements. Let's pass on to the next slide. And what are F block elements? So here the definition is like this. The elements in which 4f and 5f orbitals are progressively filled in the two long periods. So in the previous slide I have shown you. So F block elements contains two series. One is the lanthanide series of elements, other is the actinide series of elements. In the lanthanide series of elements, 4f orbital is progressively filled. So here you know that in any f orbital, maximum it can accommodate 14 electrons. So here in the lanthanide series, 4f orbital it is progressively filled, and in case of the actinide series, 5f orbitals are progressively filled. Now I'll show you which are the F block elements. Here you can see there are two series. One is the lanthanide series, other is the actinide series of elements. Lanthanide series, it starts from lanthanum, ends with lutetium, and actinide series of elements, it starts from actinium and ends with the laryntium. So here in this slide, so you can make out which are the D block elements and which are the F block elements. So the elements belonging to group 3 to 12, so they are collectively known as D block elements, and then we have a separate block, that is F block, which has two series. One is the actinide series and other is the lanthanide series of elements. And then here I have taken the first transition series of elements, which starts from scandium, ends with the zinc. And here here we have mentioned the atomic number, atomic symbol of the first lanthanide, first transition series of elements, and their respective electronic configuration. So here you can see scandium, whose atomic number is 21, has electronic configuration as argon core 3d1-4s2, whereas titanium, whose atomic number is 22, has electronic configuration argon core 3d2-4s2, and so on. So here what you can make out, what you can understand, so here in these elements 3d orbital, it is progressively filled. So that is why, so this first transition series of elements, they are also called as 3d transition series of elements, because in these elements 3d orbital is progressively filled. Here there are four transition series of elements. So the first transition series, second transition series, third transition series, and fourth transition series of elements. The first transition series of elements, it includes the elements from scandium to zinc. So in the previous slide I have shown you. So here the first transition series elements, they are also called as 3D transition series of elements, because in these elements 3d orbital it is progressively filled from 3d1 to 3d10. Here, second transition series, which is also called as 4D transition series, includes the metals from yttrium to cadmium. Here, why it is called as a 4D transition series of elements? It is because in these elements, 4D orbital it is progressively filled from 4d1 to 4d10. Next series is third transition series, which is also called as 5D transition series of elements, which include the elements from hafnium to mercury. And here in this series of elements, 5D orbital is progressively filled. The last one is the fourth transition series, which is also known as 6D transition series of elements. This series includes the elements from rutherfordium to copernicium. Here 6D orbital is progressively filled. So D block has 4 transition series of elements. They are first, second, third and fourth transition series. They are also called as, like, first transition series is called as 3D transition series of elements, because here in these elements or in this series 3D orbital is progressively filled. So similarly, second transition series is called as 4D transition series, because here in this series of elements 4D orbital is progressively filled. Then third transition series is called as 5D transition series of elements, because in this series of elements 5D orbital is progressively filled. And the last one, fourth transition series, so which is also called as 6D transition series of elements, because in these elements 6D orbital is progressively filled. So this is about the different series of transition elements in the D block. So here in this slide you can make out. So here the first transition series, that is called also called as 3D series. So it includes the elements from scandium to zinc. So similarly, the 4D transition series, so which is the second transition series of elements. So it ranges from yttrium to cadmium. And then the third transition series, which is known as 5D transition series, so which includes the elements from hafnium to mercury. Then what is the general electronic configuration for D block elements? So I think in the last year you can remember, with respect to the S block and P block elements, you had written the general electronic configuration, particularly for S block elements and for P block elements as well. So here also for the entire D block elements, so we can give a general electronic configuration, and it is like this: n-1d 1 to 10, ns 1 to 2. So here what is this n-1d 1 to 10 and ns 1 to 2? So here why we have mentioned d 1 to 10? So you know that in any d orbital we can accommodate maximum 10 electrons, or you can say the maximum capacity of d orbital is 10 electrons. So here in this series of elements, d orbital it is progressively filled from 1 to 10 electrons, whereas here ns refers to the outermost s orbital, and you know that in any s orbital maximum we can accommodate 2 electrons. That is why we have mentioned ns 1 to 2. So here what is n-1d here? It is the inner d orbital. So where n-1d refers to inner d orbital and ns refers to the outermost s orbital. And here between these two energy level, that is n-1d and ns, there is a little energy gap. The energy gap, energy difference, or little energy gap can be seen between n-1d orbital and ns orbital, or you can say there is a little energy difference between n-1d and ns orbitals. So here, how to prove that? So how do we come to know that the energy gap between n-1d and the ns orbital is little? So to prove that, so here I have taken 2 examples. I have taken the elements of the first transition series, that is from 3D series. I have taken 2 elements, one is chromium and other is copper. Now we shall see. The actual electronic configuration of chromium is given as argon core 3d5 4s1. But So if we follow the rule, see here, both chromium and copper, they are going to violate the actual rule for assigning electrons in various shells of an atom. See, the actual electronic configuration of chromium is argon core 3d5 4s1 instead of argon core 3d4 4s2. So why we state like this? See, according to the rules for assigning electrons in various shells of an atom. So here, while accommodating the electrons, how do we follow? First, we fill the energy levels with lower energy first. Later, so we fill the electrons in the orbitals with the higher energy level. So when we compare the energy difference with respect to 3d and 4s orbital, so 4s orbital is the orbital with lower energy and 3d orbital is the orbital with higher energy. So as per the rule, first we have to fill the 4s orbital and then the remaining electron will go to the 3d orbital. So here when we do so, then we obtain the electronic configuration of chromium as argon core 3d4 4s2. But as I said earlier, the energy difference between 3d and 4s orbital is so small. So because of which, so here what happens now, you shall see the energy gap between 3d and 4s orbital is small enough to prevent the electron entering the 3d orbital. So that means an electron will be shifted from 4s orbital to the 3d orbital. So thereby the electronic configuration of chromium becomes argon core 3d5 4s1 and not argon core 3d4 4s2. So similarly, I'm going to take one more example. So in case of copper, its electronic configuration is written as argon core 3d10 4s1 and not as argon core 3d9 4s2. See, when we fill the 4s orbital first, after that we allocate the remaining electrons in the 3d orbital. When we follow that rule, then we obtain the electronic configuration for copper as argon core 3d9 4s2. But since the energy gap is small between 3d and 4s orbital, an electron will be shifted from 4s orbital to the 3d orbital. So thereby we are going to obtain the electronic configuration for copper as argon core 3d10 4s1. Now you carefully observe both the cases, both chromium as well as the copper. So one electron is being shifted from 4s orbital to the 3d orbital. In case of chromium, so we had seen, so when there is a shift of one electron from 4s orbital to the 3d orbital, we have obtained the electronic configuration as argon core 3d5 4s1. So you know that in d orbital maximum 10 electrons can be accommodated, right? So then what we have obtained here 3d5, which is the exactly half of its capacity. What I mean to say here, chromium has got half filled 3d orbital. So when there is a shift of electron from 4s orbital to the 3d orbital. Similarly, in case of copper also, the same shifting of 4s orbital, so shifting of an electron from 4s orbital to the 3d orbital can be seen. So thereby here we have obtained completely filled 3d orbital. So then why this kind of shifting of electron takes place? Because if any element, if it is having a half filled and completely filled sets of orbitals, it is considered to be stable, or you can say it is going to attain the stability by having a half filled and completely filled sets of orbitals. So that is why in case of chromium, in order to obtain stability, one electron will be shifted from 4s orbital to the 3d orbital so as to obtain a electronic configuration as argon core 3d5 4s1, where 3d orbital is half filled. That is why chromium is going to be more stable. So similarly, in case of copper, when one electron is being shifted from 4s orbital to the 3d orbital, so here we are going to obtain a completely filled 3d orbital, which leads to more stability. So in either of the cases, the shifting of electron from 4s orbital to 3d orbital is being done in order to obtain stability. So in any element, so if it is having a half filled and completely filled sets of orbitals, it is going to be relatively more stable. Transition elements. So here the definition for transition element is like this. A transition element is defined as the one which has incompletely filled orbital in its ground state or in any one of its oxidation states. See, if we want to call any element belonging to D block as transition element, it should necessarily have an incompletely filled D orbital. Then only it can be called as a transition element. So a transition element should have partially filled or incompletely filled n-1 d orbital. Then only it can be called as transition element. Okay, so here, and there is one more reason. So why D block elements are called as transition elements? If you look at the periodic table where they have occupied which place, D block elements are called as transition elements because they occupy the middle of the periodic table and their properties are transitional between S block and P blocks. So what I mean to say, here in the periodic table, D block elements occupy the middle position of the periodic table, that is in between the S block elements and the P block elements, and they also possess the properties possessed by both S block and P block elements. That is why we have used the term. Their properties are transitional between S block and P block elements, hence they are called as transition elements. Then, now the question is, can we call all the elements present in the D block as transition elements? The answer is no, because here we have an exception. Zinc, cadmium and mercury, they are not at all regarded as transition elements, though they have been included in the D block. Now, let's see what is the possible reason for that. The electronic configuration of zinc, cadmium and mercury are represented by the general formula n-1 d10 ns2. Carefully observe here. So n-1 d10 refers to having completely filled d orbital. ns2 also refers that the outermost s orbital is also completely filled. So now if we have a careful look towards the electronic configuration of zinc, cadmium and mercury, now we will come to know that here zinc, whose atomic number is 30, having electronic configuration as argon core 3d10 4s2, cadmium, whose atomic number is 48, having its electronic configuration as krypton core 4d10 5s2, and mercury, whose atomic number is 80 and its electronic configuration is xenon core 5d10 6s2. So here, if you carefully observe the electronic configuration of these three elements, so one thing we will find out, what is that? Having completely filled d and s orbitals. So that is why, so here the general electronic configuration for these three elements, it is written as n-1 d10 ns2. Now let's go back to the previous one. What is that? So if you want to call a D block element as transition element, what is the necessary condition? The necessary condition is it should have partially filled or incompletely filled d orbital. But here what we have got with respect to zinc, cadmium and mercury, all these three elements they are having completely filled d orbital, so which is exactly contrary to the actual statement for the transition elements. That is why all these three elements they are not regarded as transition elements, but still, so they have been included in the D block elements, and we have to study about these three elements along with the study of D block elements, because their chemical and physical properties, they are very similar to transition elements. That is why, so we are going to study about zinc, cadmium and mercury physical and chemical properties along with the remaining D block elements. Remember, all these three elements, since they have got completely filled d orbitals, so they are not regarded as transition elements. Then let's pass on to the physical properties of transition elements. See, all these elements which are included in D block, they are metallic in nature. That means the first property says that all are metals. All the D block elements, they are metallic in nature, or you can say they are metals. These are malleable and ductile, except mercury, which is a liquid. So here these metals can be made into sheets and wires. That's what the meaning is. Next property. So they have high tensile strength. Tensile strength is resistance of a material to breaking under tension. Suppose if you want to break a material, how long it can show resistance, that is called as tensile strength, and all these transition elements they have high tensile strength. And they have high thermal and electrical conductivity as well. That means they are very good conductors of heat and electricity. And they have metallic luster. So in your lower classes, we have studied that all the metals they have shining surface. That is the metallic luster. And they are sonorous. That means, so here, capable of producing a ringing sound. So you might have heard the bell ringing in the church or in the temples. It is just because those metals which are used to make that bell, so they are sonorous in nature. Lastly, transition metals are very hard and they have high melting points and boiling points. It is due to the strong metal-metal bonding which exists between the metal atoms. Trends in melting points of transition metals. Here is a graph, atomic number versus melting point. So here we have taken the first, second and third transition series of elements and we have plotted a graph. So if you carefully look at the graph, so what we can infer, melting point and boiling point of transition metals increases from left to right here. So look at the third transition series from hafnium to, here it is the gold. So here you can see from left to right it keeps on increasing, becomes maximum in the middle of each series and then decreases except in case of the manganese and technetium. So here you can see there is a dip in the melting point of technetium and manganese. Or in other words we can say manganese and technetium, they have low melting points because see both have having the a larger number of unpaired electrons, but remember these electrons they do not get delocalized. That means they cannot move freely, so because of which they cannot form strong metal bonds. That means so when they fail to form strong metal bonds, then it will be easier to break the bond which exists between the atoms. That is why we will see a dip or a decrease in the melting points of technetium and manganese. Melting point and boiling point of second and third transition series are higher because of stronger metal-metal bonds. So as the atomic number increases, the availability of the number of unpaired electrons increases, which leads to the formation of strong metal-metal bond. That is why the melting point and boiling point of second and third transition series are higher because of stronger metal-metal bond. Enthalpy of atomization. So here it is defined like this. The amount of energy required for the conversion of a metallic crystal into individual atoms is called enthalpy of atomization. So I repeat, the amount of energy required for the conversion of a metallic crystal into individual atom is called enthalpy of atomization. So suppose, suppose if we have a metallic crystal like this, okay, this is a metallic crystal and here the dots represent either the atom or the ions. So there will be, in any metallic crystal, there will be regular arrangement of atoms or ions. So here, what is the amount of energy required to break this metallic crystal into individual atoms? So for this purpose, what is the amount of energy required is called as enthalpy of atomization. Are you able to understand? So here we have a metallic crystal. In order to break up this metallic crystal into individual atoms, what is the amount of energy required? That's what the statement says. The amount of energy required for the conversion of a metallic crystal into individual atom is called as enthalpy of atomization. So here the transition metals have high enthalpy of atomization. It is attributed to the strong interatomic interactions with greater number of unpaired electrons results in stronger bonding. What does it mean? It means that if the metal atoms offer a more number of or larger number of unpaired electrons, that leads to strong interatomic interaction. That means the bond which exists between the metal atom, it becomes more and more stronger. That is why if we want to break a metallic crystal into its individual atoms, then definitely we have to supply a large amount of energy. That is why we say transition metals have high enthalpy of atomization, because so as we move down the series, like from first transition series to the second transition series of elements and second to third, so what happens? The availability of the number of unpaired electrons increases, which attributes the strong interatomic interactions, which leads to the formation of strong metal-metal bond. That is why all transition metals, they have high enthalpy of atomization. Second and third transition series of metals have greater enthalpy of atomization because of stronger metal-metal bonding. So why they form stronger metal-metal bonding? It is due to the availability of the greater number of unpaired electrons, which results in the formation of stronger metal-metal bonding. Atomic and ionic radii. So about which you have already studied when you were in first year. I'm just putting some pictures just to rebrush your memory. So here, this is the atomic radii and its definition, and also we have ionic radius. See, closely you just have a look at these pictures. Here, atomic radius, the definition is half of the distance between nuclei in covalently bonded diatomic molecule. So here in the first picture, so we have a diatomic molecule, so where two atoms, they are bonded to one another. So here you can see what is D? D is the distance between the two nuclei of a covalently bonded diatomic molecule. So here, what is R? Atomic radius, D by 2, half of the distance. That's what the definition says. Half of the distance between the nuclei in covalently bonded diatomic molecule is called as atomic radius, which is given by R is equal to D by 2. So D is the distance between the two nuclei, half of it, that is D by 2, is the atomic radius. Similarly, the half of the distance between the nuclei of two ions is called as the ionic radius. Now, let's come back to the D and F block elements. Atomic and ionic radii of transition metals are smaller than the corresponding S block elements. See, last year actually we have studied in inorganic chemistry that when we move from left to right in the periodic table, the atomic and ionic radii of the elements is found to be decreasing. So here, so when we say it decreases, so when it comes to the D block elements, the atomic and ionic radii of transition metals are usually smaller than the corresponding S block elements. Atomic and ionic radii of transition metals show progressive decrease along the period. So when we move along the period in the D block, so we will see a considerable decrease in the atomic and ionic radii. Then what must be the reason for this? From left to right in a transition series, atomic number increases. Okay, so what happens if the atomic number increases? If the atomic number increases, what is the definition for atomic number? It is the number of protons present in the nucleus of an atom. See, in any atom, so as to maintain the electric neutrality, so there will be equal number of protons and the electrons. If the number of protons are increasing, consequently, that increases the number of electrons in the penultimate shell. So number of protons in the nucleus and the number of electrons in the penultimate shell also increases. Penultimate shell means the shell or the energy level which lies just before the outermost shell. It is called as penultimate shell. So in which we will see increase in the electrons. And remember, these electrons have to be accommodated in the inner d orbitals after filling the outermost s orbital. But d electrons have poor shielding effect or poor shielding power. Thus, effective nuclear charge increases. See, when there is increase in the number of electrons in the d orbital, but we will see the d electrons have got poor shielding effect. That means the electrons present in the d orbital cannot overcome the force of attraction exerted by the nucleus. Or in other words, we can say these electrons, they are under the influence of force of attraction exerted by the nucleus, which we call it as effective nuclear charge, which is going to get increased because of the poor shielding power of electrons present in the d orbital. So nuclear attractive force on the outermost electron increases as a result of the poor shielding effect of d electrons. So the effective nuclear charge increases, and hence atomic and ionic radii decreases. See, the electrons present in the d orbital, when they fail to overcome the force of attraction exerted by the nucleus, so they are greatly pulled by the nucleus towards itself. That leads to decrease in atomic and ionic radii. And so that was the story about the atomic and ionic radii along the period. What happens down the group? Atomic and ionic radii down the group increases from first to second transition series of elements, but the atomic radii of second and third transition series are virtually same. So when we move from first transition series to the second transition series, we will see considerable increase in atomic and ionic radii. But as we move from second to third transition series of elements, their atomic and ionic radii, they are almost same. What is the reason? The reason is very simple. The similarity in the radii is due to the filling of 4f orbitals before 5d orbitals, which causes a phenomenon called as lanthanide contraction. To understand this, let us take two examples. So here I have taken hafnium and the tungsten. Hafnium, whose atomic number is 72 and its electronic configuration is xenon core 4f14 5d2 6s2, and on the other hand we have tungsten, whose atomic number is 74 and its electronic configuration is xenon core 4f14 5d4 6s2. See here, both the elements have got completely filled 4f orbitals. So here, look at the previous statement. So why there is a similarity in with respect to the radii of second and third transition series of elements? It is due to the filling of 4f orbitals before 5d orbitals. So here, until and unless 4f orbital is completely filled, no electrons go to the 5d orbitals. So what I mean to say, first 4f electron is get completely filled, thereafter the remaining electrons goes to the 5d orbital. So this actually causes lanthanide contraction. So then what is this lanthanide contraction? See, lanthanide contraction is actually seen in case of the lanthanides. So already actually I have shown you. So when I have shown you the picture of periodic table, F block elements means, so it has two series, lanthanide series and actinide series. Just look at the lanthanide series of elements. It starts from lanthanum, ends with the lutetium. When we move from lanthanum to lutetium, we will see gradual and steady decrease with respect to the atomic size of the lanthanides. So this phenomenon is known as lanthanide contraction. The same can be seen in the third transition series, so which is due to the filling of 4f orbital before 5d orbital, which is the actual reason for the lanthanide contraction. The definition of lanthanide contraction is like this: steady decrease in the size of lanthanides with increase in the atomic number is known as lanthanide contraction. Same phenomenon can also be seen in case of the third transition series of elements. That is why their atomic number, their atomic size is found to be resembling very much with the second transition series of elements. Trends in atomic radii of transition elements. Here, we have plotted a graph here with atomic number versus metallic radius, and we have taken the first three transition series of elements. The first transition series, that is a 3D series, second transition series, that is 4D series, and third transition series, it is 5D series. So already actually you have come to know that when you move from first transition series to the second transition series, there is a considerable increase in the atomic radii. But look at the green dots and red dots. They are almost very close to one another. That means the atomic radii of second and third transition series are virtually same. That's what the graph says. Density. How do you define density? It is mass by volume, right? Here, from left to right in the periodic table, the atomic radii decreases where atomic mass increases. See, in any period, so when you move from left to right, what happens to the atomic radii? Actually, it decreases. So when atomic radii get decreased, that leads to the increase in the atomic mass. Remember, in mass by volume ratio, if mass is increasing means what? Density should also increase. So what I mean to say, from left to right in a period, atomic radii decreases where atomic mass increases, thus density increases. Next is valency and oxidation state. Transition metals show variable oxidation state. The general electronic configuration of transition elements can be written as N-1 D 1 to 10, Ns 1 to 2. Already you are familiar with by now. All the transition metals show divalency, that is valency 2, and plus 2 oxidation state in common using Ns electron. So look at the general electronic configuration. N-1 D 1 to 10 refers to inner d orbital, and Ns refers to outermost s orbital. So all these elements, they readily lose the electron present in the outermost s orbital. Thereby, they are going to have valency as 2 and oxidation number as plus 2. They may show higher valency and oxidation state by successive use of N-1 d electrons. So just actually we came to know that when they lose the electrons present in the outermost s orbital, they are going to acquire oxidation state as plus 2 and divalency as 2. Then after losing the electrons from outermost s orbital, there are electrons in the inner d orbital which they can lose so as to increase their valency as well as the oxidation state. Then oxidation states of 3D transition series of elements. So here you can see the oxidation states of first transition series of elements, so which starts from scandium, ends with the zinc. So here what we can infer, oxidation state increases from left to right up to manganese with the increase in the number of unpaired electrons. See, if we have a closer look towards the oxidation states of the first transition series of elements, so here you can see plus 3 for scandium, plus 4 for titanium, and for vanadium it is plus 5, and here you can see from scandium to manganese it keeps on increasing because the availability of number of unpaired electrons keeps on increasing, and it becomes maximum when it reaches manganese. Then after manganese it keeps on decreasing because there is a decrease in the availability of number of unpaired electrons. So that is why, so we see decrease in the oxidation states of the first transition series of elements after manganese. And here what we can infer, so from this chart here, so manganese is the element of first transition series which is having highest oxidation number. So this is important for 1 mark. So they may ask us, which element in the 3D transition series has highest oxidation number? The answer is manganese, which is having a plus 7 as its oxidation number and which is maximum for the first transition series. Stability. Here, the stability of higher oxidation state is maximum in the middle because in the beginning of the series there are fewer electrons to lose or share, and at the end there are fewer orbitals available for sharing of electron. See, so in the previous slide I had shown you, so manganese was the element which is having the highest oxidation number, and it is going to be the more stable also. It is because it is in the middle, and also it is having the maximum number of unpaired of electrons. So here the stability that depends on the availability of the number of unpaired electrons, because when there is availability of the larger number of unpaired electrons, that leads to the sharing or losing of electrons, which leads to the stronger bond formation so as to attain the stability. That is why it states that stability of higher oxidation state is maximum in the middle, because in the beginning of the series there are fewer electrons. So in case of the scandium, so only 3 electrons were available. That is why its oxidation state was only +3. So in the beginning, from scandium to manganese, so there are fewer electrons are available for the bond formation, and after manganese again there are fewer orbitals available for sharing of electrons. That is why the stability is at its maximum only when it comes to manganese. Stability of higher oxidation state increases down the group, that is from top to bottom, because the distance of d orbitals from the nucleus increases, removal of electrons becomes easier. See, when you move down the group, that is from one transition series to the other transition series, the stability increases. Why? Because the distance between the nucleus and the electrons present in the d orbital keeps on increasing. Then it becomes very easy to remove the electrons from the outermost shell or from the d orbital. Hence, that leads to the stability. Okay, so that's it for today. So let me stop here. We'll meet in the next class. Thank you.